Hello everyone! I am so excited about this video and can't wait to get into these frame and tray hacks. We're going to go ahead and jump into project number 1, and it's going to be a fun one and a bright one just to get this started. But don't worry, we have lots of different styles in this video. We're starting off with this gorgeous box style frame where the glass inset sets back in it, and that's going to play to our advantage for this project. Now I'm giving this just a messy coat of this elegant teal and folk art, and then I'm going to let that dry and then pounce on the second coat for a more textured look. I'm so excited about what is going in this frame. I had to use this folk art shocking pink on this 1-inch border that is right above the glass of this frame. We're going to be using the glass of this frame for our base, so I went ahead and gave it a coat of white chalk paint and a generous coat of Mod Podge. I let the chalk paint dry and then put on the Mod Podge and let it dry for the next step. We are going to be using this gorgeous Frida napkin as our base, and we're going to do some other things to that frame, so don't worry, there's still quite a few steps left for Frida. Now I'm taking my nonstick paper, placing it over my napkin, and ironing it on that glass to reheat the Mod Podge and get a perfect flat ironed on napkin. I put her back in the frame and I missed 2 steps. One, I put gold wax dripping down from the top of her rose's crown, and I added a clear coat on top of my chalk paint, which, as you can see, brought this really dark green color through, and that's fine. I love that, and we're going to add something else that's really going to make both of these greens pop. I am sorry about the gold, but you'll see me using some more of that shortly. Now I'm using this DIY Shipwrecked wax, which is a turquoise color. And we're going to go over the whole front of this to give it some of that blue that is on the side of her neck and just a couple little places on the napkin. Not much, but this is going to bring that out. I also go around the sides, and then once I do that, I will wipe some of this back. Then I'm going to take this brush and pounce on my last coat of that wax, getting this gorgeous texture that you see now. I'm taking my gold brush and just going over all of the filigree that is on this frame, and to seal Frida I used clear wax because she's not behind the glass, she's actually on top of the glass. You all will have to let me know what you think about this one. Oh my gosh, you all, I had so much fun with project number 2. I cannot wait to see what you guys have to say about it and until you see the end of it. So I started off with this canvas, with just a plain white canvas, and I cut the actual fabric off of it, off of the wood. We're going to put that to the side, and I found this 8x10 backing. And I stripped all of the hardware off of this because I don't need that, sanded that little rough spot, and now I'm taking a good permanent glue stick, and you can see how juicy this thing is. I am putting a generous amount on the back of the canvas and adding it to that 8x10 backing. We're going to be using this beautiful print, and I'm just going to tear around the edges just haphazardly and add it to the white backing with the glue stick. Same thing. If you love mixed media projects, you're going to love this one too. So I go ahead and grab some of this beautiful, well, this is folk art, frosted leaves, yeah, paint, chalk paint, and then I grabbed this, I think this is Bayberry from Fusion, and I'm going to use these 2 colors to kind of blend out my image farther. We're not going to need much. We're not even going to need as much paint as I put on here because a lot of this is going to get covered up. But what you do end up seeing blends in so well on the end, at the end of this project. All right, we're going to put that to the side, and I've already painted the back side of another canvas, that Bayberry, and I'm ripping out most of the center, but I'm going to leave enough to fold some of the sides over. We're going to rough those sides up. We want them to show just a little bit, but not a lot. And we're going to paint what's left of that canvas in this really pale yellow. All this is going to tie in with the first piece that we started. Okay, I've let my yellow paint dry. I've roughed up all the edges that are left. And now I have this gorgeous textured paper. And I want to add this all the way around on top of the yellow to give it more of a earthy look. I grabbed some fencing out of my stash, and I'm using E6000 and hot glue to put on the little pieces of wood. And then I'm going to stick it in between the canvas and the wood frame. We're going to attach our two pieces together with E6000 and hot glue, which means I'm putting the backing with the image on it onto the back of the canvas that I tore out some of the canvas, if that makes sense. And I'm just going to press that down firmly. And now the fun begins. I'm just going to grab some of my florals, my rocks, my mushrooms, anything that I think would make this treehouse cottage look so much more adorable. Now I'm just going to go around and add some mushrooms, some moss. You're going to see items have already been added, little tree branches, glue, and when I put this glue on, I'm adding these little mica flakes of different colors, just anything to give it a little bit different look, and of course tie in everything together until I like the way it looks. I also have these cute little peach rocks. I think these came from Dollar Tree. I have some green ones too, and I'm just using hot glue to glue them on. The color really goes so well with the orangey and peachy colors in this canvas. Now, as you can see, I have already added all the way around my little treehouse cottage, and now I'm going to add some glossy accents to the windows and the little window on the door, and even dot on all of the little yellow stars that kind of go on top of the cottage and in the air. And I do the same to the moon. I put glossy accents on the moon. Because there's little white dots all over the trees and the house, I want to extend those little white dots up into that paint that we painted earlier, which now it just kind of looks like tree leaves up there. So I'm going to add little white dots using my little dotting tool and just some white chalk paint to carry those little white dots all up into the tree line. I'm going to go ahead and add some of this gorgeous gold cosmic shimmer Luna paste, just sort of all over. A little bit on the mushrooms, a little bit on the fence, on some of the plants, on some of the rocks, just to give it a little bit of glow on the outside and around the whole frame. I'm going to put it on these cute little twirly things that kind of look like circle-y things. I don't know what those are called. But anyways, just give a little bit of sparkle throughout the whole thing. Our last step to this piece, and I know I'm so sad it's over, is this gorgeous frame that I paid $2.49 for. I've had this about 5 years. It was $24.99 at Hobby Lobby. This is actually made for a canvas, so it's very deep. And since it has been in my stash for a while, it is scratched up. I wanted to go ahead and give this a coat of this Fusion Oakum paint. We're going to let that dry, and then this is what's going to frame our beautiful mixed media. Once this dries, I'm going to add some of this Lucky Emerald wax and some of this, I think it's antique silk or silk linen wax to the paint, giving it a beautiful green and sort of different, not really pink, but different colored look as well as the green. Once we finish that, I'm going to add these silver corners, and you all have to let me know what you think about this one. Project number 3, oh my, it is so beautiful and so easy. I've had this gorgeous, very large wood tray, almost like a bowl, but it's not real deep, and I really wanted to keep the wood look. So I grabbed this A Lost Garden by IOD Transfer and just started cutting out some random pieces to make it look like it had wild flowers and berries blooming all over it in different directions. And that is all I did, other than once I got all of the pieces on that I wanted, I did go ahead and give this a clear coat of my favorite matte Rust-Oleum clear coat finish, and finish the edges off of this with a gold rub and buff. And this is actually, I don't know if it's my favorite piece as far as simplicity in this video, but it's definitely in the top 3. I was going to add handles to this, but I really never had any in my stash that looked like they would go with it well. Let me know what you think about this one. Ooh, project number 4. So almost every single project has something different to do or some type of technique that is just fun. So I'm so excited about each one of these. But I bought this for $1.99 and I picked up several different sizes at Hobby Lobby. Now the reason is these are cheaper than buying a thrift flip, so why not? And you can use them for so many things. So this one right now, I'm just giving it a messy coat. Even the frame's gonna be just white chalk paint, and we need this as our base. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to be using some of this DIY clay paint, and we're going to use some of the soft chunks out of this that forms around the rim. Now, if you don't like these chunks, you can definitely, remove them, or you can put them down in the paint and they actually will redissolve into a softer paint. That's the thing about clay paint. You can add sterile water to it and make it thinner. You can use the clay chunks in your art, so that's what we're going to do today. This is sandy blonde, and I'm going to be using, I think this is vintage linen. I've gotten out some scraper tools because that's what we're going to do. We're going to use our scraper tools to put a textured base over top of the white chalk paint that we just put on there. I'm just using these silicone scrapers that I had in my stash to apply this because I want the background to be really textured on this piece. And you can see the difference in the white linen or the vintage linen paint compared to white chalk paint. It's almost a very light gray, but if you only used it by itself, you would think it was just another shade of white, which technically it is. I don't know. That's color theory, and we're not getting into that right now. Here is what we are left with, and I used a piece of mixed media paper to do the same thing on, because we are going to use this very large butterfly stamp from the IOD stamp line, and I'm going to stamp on top of that paper that I did the same technique on. And then we're going to cut out our beautiful butterfly. Now off camera, I did add a very sturdy piece of cardboard, very thin, to the back of this butterfly. I'm going to go ahead and take that black ink pad and go all around the edges just to kind of give this a little bit of definition and to kind of help cover up those cut marks. That's one nice thing when you're cutting something. If you add paint or ink around the edges, it really looks a lot more finished. We're going to work on our background again, and this is going to mostly finish this background off. I'm using the Le Courrier stamp by IOD. I love this stamp. It's one of my favorites, and I'm just using different little pieces of it to make this have some text in the background. I wanted to go ahead and add some of that paint back on top of the text just so it's not just sitting on top of all that texture. Add more texture to it, and I used the same 2 colors that we did in the background. We have to add something to the frame, so I chose this folk art. It's just regular acrylic paint, and I think it's antique gold or real gold, I can't remember. And I'm just using my brush to cut out the lines all the way around, inside and on the outside of this frame. Now you can see where I've added that stiff paper to the back of my butterfly and some of those foam raised things because I want it to stick out just a little. And I'm adding some hot glue for extra hold. And there we are. And I did put some of that paint on the butterfly and some gold around the butterfly. We're finishing this piece off with taking the black ink pad around those edges and giving some smudge to it. We're also going to use a little fine brush and add some black ink just here and there to give it not necessarily a drippy look, but maybe like rust, but in black that's kind of fading its way down. You guys will have to let me know what you think about this one. I loved the process of this and can't wait to do more projects like this in the future. Oh yeah, and I meant to add some little black wire antenna. I'm going to go back and do that. I just didn't want to cut the paper ones out because they were so tiny. All right, project number 5. What I meant to say was projects number 5, 6, and 7. Except for one of them bites the dust. I will tell you more about that later. Also, after these little mini trays, we have another mixed media project coming up. We're going to be using these gorgeous DIY clay paints. They are perfect colors for spring and summer. We're going to make some cute little mini trays just to spice up those little areas where we sit outside, on our porches, or our little sunrooms, things like that. Now these are definitely going to be sealed, but you know, weather would not be good for them, so make sure that this is for a covered area. I'm just showing you here that I had used a couple of my paints were very thick, and instead of watering them down and thinning them out, I decided to use them and put 2 thick coats on and use my heat tool and dry the paint, and it cracked so beautifully and made these look aged. So clay paint, if it's really thick, will do that, and it's gorgeous. I went ahead and used some more of that IOD transfer that we've been using on this aqua tray, and look how gorgeous. Oh my goodness. So I'm sealing it here with clear wax because we're going to be using some white wax to get down in all of those crevices and cracks. Before we get started on the white wax, I'm just lightly going to wipe some of that clear wax back. Now look at that beautiful white wax. Both of these are DIY waxes by Debbie's Design Diary. Love the clear and white wax from this line. Once we get that really down in those crevices and those cracks, I will wipe back some, mostly off of the florals and not a lot off of the little crevices. All right, we're on the second tray, and I'm basically doing the same thing, except for I'm putting the transfer on in portrait instead of landscape, and the tray will be more vertical like this, you know, just by design. But as I'm doing this, my paint starts peeling up a little bit. So I thought, well, you know, let's just turn it the other way and maybe it won't peel up. And it doesn't, and it saves the day. And then I go ahead and seal this, of course, again, just because of I was worried, you know, that it might peel up a little bit or something like that. The thing is, the only thing I can think is different. I did let these cure quite long, but not overnight. I think that the aqua tray, because it was so thick that it just clung to that tray. And this is a newer jar of paint and it's thinner, and so is the green because that color just came out. I got crackle on this one just as well as the aqua one, but I don't know. Once this dries, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of these little gold filigree things from one of the gilded IOD transfers. I'm going to do the clear wax and the white wax, and this tray will be finished. I wanted to share this clip of where I pulled the paint off of this just to show you that everybody makes mistakes and it's okay. I just threw the tray in the trash. Now, I could have tried to repaint over this and do it again, but you know what? Sometimes we just have to save our sanity by throwing away a Dollar Tree tray. And that is exactly what I did. Here are the final two. Of course, I would have loved to have had that third tray in this trio, but you know what? This blue and coral is gorgeous, and they will be plenty for me. Let me know what you think about these in the comments below. Project number 8. So project number 8 is definitely one that I was unhappy with some things. We're starting off with this Currier & Ives. It's definitely a vintage tray, and I had it in my vendor booth, tried to sell it because I love the scenery. It did not sell, so I brought it home, and we're gonna make this over. I'm giving it 2 good coats of this Prom Queen by DIY. I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna use this Folk Art Crackle. Now I go ahead and give this a generous coat, making sure to get any extra off. Let that dry, which took hours. And now I'm using my second coat. I'm spreading it, making sure to not really keep going over and over to mess up the crackle effect. And it does start cracking immediately. I grab my heat tool and I start using it to help the crackles come quicker. And I don't like them. I mean, it really looks like I used Elmer's glue on here, which is fine. But if I wanted those long Elmer's glue looking cracks, I would just use that. You know, I wouldn't buy something different. And actually the crackle on the front of the jar doesn't look like this. And I even tried to make my strokes go different ways so that the crackle may crackle in different ways. So I don't know. It's just, again, I'm using this heat tool and you'll see I don't like it. I mean, I know some people love that look and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not what I like. So what I did to save this and to get it more blended and get these long cracks kind of going in little different directions, I just grabbed both of those colors of paint and just kind of brushed over in different ways, like side to side, dabbing a little bit, things like that, to get more of the look that I want. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with the cracks. It's just not, I just don't like it. So once I get some paint kind of dabbed in, both of the colors, I'm going to let that dry because we have something that's really going to bring this piece together coming up. I've had this Iron Orchid Designs English toile in my stash for a long time, and I have used some of it, and we're going to put this on that tray as a little bit of an ode to what actually is underneath, which was kind of like a country scenery. So I'm just going to cut out parts, because if I try to put one piece on here where it's an oval shape, that's just not going to work. So I do just cut out little parts and then add them in all along to get the look that I want. Now that I have the look that I want, I'm going to go ahead and add some white wax to this. Now I didn't use clear wax because I really want this wax to get down in those crevices and I don't want a barrier. I didn't even seal this. I'm going to use the white wax to seal it because we're going to use something else as well. But look how that's all blending in, and to be honest, you can't really see all those big striping cracks in the background because of this and then of some of the technique that we did, and as well as putting that white wax on. Once I get that done, I really want this to look vintage because it is a vintage tray. So I grabbed out my brown wax from Dixie Belle. The brown, black, and gray wax from Dixie Belle is my favorite. The white wax and the clear wax is my favorite from DIY. But I have not used Dixie Belle's white or clear because I've loved the DIY wax so much in those two colors. Well, the white wax did not make a good barrier, as you can see. So now we're going to have to use some clear wax to get some of that brown off because that just looks dirty and that is not the look I'm going for. So I have clear wax on this paper towel and I am adding more clear wax. And as I do that and rub over the brown, oh my gosh, you all, Look at those cracks and crevices. It is getting gorgeous. So if you think, we already had one fail in this video and I showed you that I didn't fix it, but this one, I just kept working at it to get the look that I wanted, and it turned out much, much better. Now, in the end, I go ahead and add a little bit of copper around the edge of this tray, and it is finished. Let me know what you think about this one, and what is your favorite crackle medium that doesn't give you those long cracks? Something that gives you little tiny cracks all over. Other than, I have the crackle medium from Ranger, but it's in a teeny tiny bottle and it's not really meant for big, huge projects like this. If you have stayed until the end of this video, type a T in the comment section for toile, or the word toile for me, to let me know you have. Also, thank you so much for y'all's patience on waiting on videos. I'm going to try to get out at least one every other week. I am not going to be committing to specific days or times, but I am back and I really appreciate you all. I'll see you real soon in the next video.